Okay guys, in this video we're going to be taking a look at 𝗕𝗪, which is a rapidly growing cryptocurrency company across those esports and video entertainments along with the advertising sectors. So, it has received a US patent for its proprietary technology that helps eliminate ad fraud and already has several products earning revenue. So this is a pretty interesting project. You can see that it's got some integrations on their website. So I do say it's worth checking out their website. Start digging into this one, seeing what you think, and obviously taking a good look at what the project and what the use case is. This is something that we can see quite a bit of problems on YouTube with, lots of bots kind of going around watching, videos and putting comments in, and you see all the time in our channel, right? You see the comments on the scammers down there. Ultimately, what 𝗕𝗪 are trying to do is basically eliminate that, right? So basically by able to have a proof of view. So it's an interesting protocol, well worth checking out, doing some research on it. I think we actually have done an entire video on this a little while ago, so check the channel out, but we'll try covering it here and there as well. So in this video, though, we're going to really focus in on the technical analysis of the 𝗕𝗪 cryptocurrency. So let's jump on down and, well, we're already here, but let's take a look at what's going on, right? So here we have the weekly chart for 𝗕𝗪. This is against the USDT, and we are using KuCoin as the data source for this one. Now, obviously here we can see the 5 impulse waves to the upside using Elliott theory. And again, wave 4 is the corrective wave. We had a double tap on this low area here. This is a real good, strong support line at the moment, and it is holding well. But again, this is kind of following what's going on with Bitcoin and the work-off accumulation pattern that's been forming there. So this here would actually be the secondary test in phase B, in my opinion, just lower than the selling climax, which is down here. So right now, we're actually finding the bottom, or at least potentially the bottom. We could go down one step lower. Across the board, really, but we'll have to see how the market plays out in the next little couple of weeks or so before we know for sure. So ultimately what you end up with is this area down here, and there might be an additional purchasing opportunity a little bit later. But obviously wave 4 has already extended to that stereotypical 40% here, and you can see that here with 𝗕𝗪. So let's jump on down into our daily view, and here we get the Fibonacci retracement tool. And actually what we've done here is we actually just put this on briefly here to give us a yellow box target. This is the target that's going to really signify that we're putting a close to this corrective wave, and we'll be moving up into the impulse wave 5. So that's what that box there is representing. We need to see a closed candle above this yellow box to see the big bull signal moving us on out of this area. Now, when we go and take this and actually put it up here to the double tap on the upside, we can actually see the extension levels on where some of these next targets actually lie here. So we have 20.7 cent here, kind of marked out on that extension level for 𝗕𝗪. So there's a good amount of potential swing to the upside. The first price target becomes 8.4 cent, followed by 13.1, followed by 17.8, and then obviously 20.7. So when we take a look at where we are right now, currently trading at 1.1, there's quite a bit of work to do to get to this yellow box, to get the closed candle above that box, and then obviously work our way through these extension levels to get to that higher area there, which is where we potentially could peak out here and see where wave 5 actually ends. Now, you can, of course, go much further. You can bring your Fibonacci's much lower, and you can kind of see what's been going on. But I want to see how these kind of work out for now and see how they kind of play out. So we obviously now have a bit of an understanding, right? We know where our long-term aspirations are. We obviously know where our daily views are here with our Fibonacci, and we have that 20 kind of cent target in our minds. What's going on most recently? Well, we can obviously see there is lots of downward trends here. As I said before, this is the weekly climax, or the selling climax after the fall to the downside, and we have to the push to the upside. Then we come down, coming into this area here. Now, technically, with Bitcoin, it was actually lower, which would be the secondary test in phase B. But because we're mirroring what Bitcoin is doing, you're getting very similar patterns. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. And this actually seems to be a pretty good bottom area here for 𝗕𝗪. And again, you can see how this was in this zone right here, right? So we can see how our current support is also a support that we had over here on the 14th of March. So that seems to be pretty consistent. We've held up quite well here. We're nice and low on that relative strength index on this daily chart as well. So some pretty good potential. But when we take a look at the volume, we can see the volumes are decreasing. So we're running out of steam. We're running out of momentum. We need to see a shift in the pattern here for that sentiment, which I do think is going to come really soon. So let's go ahead and pull down into the hourly view, just expand this up a little bit so you can see those candles in a little bit more detail. So right here, we can obviously see what's been going on most recently in the case of VRA. And again, we can see there's loads of, you can, of course, draw loads of downward trends and things like this, but these are the easiest things to invalidate because, they're not the most technical or advanced kind of measures in the space. They give you a bit of a flavor as to what maybe the sentiment or the trend in the market is. Again, you can do these on the short terms, but ultimately what you find is they get invalidated incredibly quickly and they're not the most secure. So, where you have these kind of wedges forming, it's always good to kind of have an idea of how they play out. We are kind of midway through this relative strength index, so it can go in either direction at the moment. So if we have a pullback recently and we continue this, follow this upward trend, then there's a high probability that actually will be in a pretty good position to push to the upside. Now, if we push up first, find resistance here and pull back, we could find that actually we do not have the amount of relative strength index required to have a significant pull out of here, and we might have a breakdown. But again, in the next kind of few hours, this will kind of form out, and again, one of these trend lines wins overall and the others lose, and all that kind of good stuff. So I can say I don't tend to do too many trend lines because they are so easy to invalidate, but it's good to know that there are some interesting things forming here when it comes to VRA. Now, the other thing that's worth kind of pointing out for Versity here is obviously all these areas of resistance and support. Here's a nice clear one. We can see the amount of wicks kind of coming up to this area here. This comes in at 1.13 cent. So we're currently at 1.110. So again, we're looking to kind of push that up a little bit. So right now that's an interesting zone. And again, if we take a look down here, we can see that actually there's a few interesting areas, these wicks just at lower end. Now, nothing concrete here. There's some interesting areas. But again, we'll probably get that kind of bottomed out soon and we'll find out exactly what's going on. This is an interesting zone just here, in fact. So I'm just going to grab that and put that in here. So we obviously have the support line there. We have the resistance found here, and then we have a support here. And again, these wicks have not quite managed to come back down to this area. This comes in at exactly 1 cent. So again, we're kind of trading here between 1 cent and 1.1 cent, and we're kind of in this barrier at the moment. So if that continues with a downward trend line, we could potentially find ourselves actually kind of getting sandwiched in. So let me grab my trend line here. Again, this is just another lightweight way of doing this. But again, rather than having an upward trend, you could say, okay, well, if we're going to follow this downward trend here, we could actually come down here, continue to bounce this area until we get stuck inside this area just here, and then have that break to the upside, right? So again, that's another scenario that could form here where we have these support lines, resistance lines, and trend lines. So again, all really important to kind of have them put on there so we can see exactly what the short-term things are. And again, don't generally do too much of the trading side of things. Good to know where your entry points might be. For Versity here, if we actually bring this back up into our daily, we can see that actually this lower area, this lower bound down here, coming in at about 0.9 of a cent. That seems to be a real good buy zone, and potentially a little bit higher. I will quickly mark this on with a bit of a rectangle, because I can see here that actually what we have is this area. Okay, I'll make this just a little bit dulled down a little bit. Let me just give that occupancy a tad off. Okay, cool. So here we can see that this is now the buy zone. I'm going to just leave this here for a while, guys. But basically, this is the wick where we came down to, just triggering it and bouncing from here. So if we go into this area here, we know that we've gone below the support line, and we know there's a further lower support line. This actually then becomes a bit of a buy area for us. So again, what I'll quickly do is just grab hold of a call out function. We'll just go and do this, and we'll just say, this is the buy zone for VRA, if anyone were to really be paying attention to it, right? Now, my expectations are that eventually, if depending on how many longs or shorts there are for Bitcoin, will determine whether or not we actually get pulled into this box and maybe a little bit lower. So again, pay attention to what's happening with Bitcoin, and you'll obviously be able to see what's going on with Versity here as well. So guys, hopefully this is useful and informative. You have a bit of an idea now as to what the expectations are long term. We obviously have that 20-cent target. We obviously know that there are some interesting things that we have to be watching out for. Once we get a closed candle above our yellow box here, this comes in about 3.8 cent. Once above 3.8 cent and we get a closed candle, preferably a weekly close above that level, and that's going to be really signaling in a move to the upside with wave 5. And again, on the shorter time frames, we obviously know there's a buy zone down here. And again, when we take a look at this, we have the expectation that we'll potentially get sandwiched into our between our support and resistance lines here with some trend lines, and eventually we'll have a breakout event, but we do need to have that sentiment in the market change first. If you found it useful, guys, then do go ahead and hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date, do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you'll be kept up to date with everything we do here. Hit the bell, tap on all, and you won't miss a single video. With that said, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one.